A Florida man has won a harassment case against his neighbor. So normally Florida man stories are insane. This one is actually just bad neighbors. Um, Now, Miami resident Alexander Tatum has been the victim of harassment for years. His neighbor, Jesus Hedra, was caught numerous times on camera hurling racial epithets at him, mooning him, and even doing actual harm to Tatum's dogs. So I'll get to the details of that stuff. But it all started back in 2019, where Tatum bought his home in Miami. And just almost immediately, his neighbor began harassing him. I guess the reason that the dispute started over his business, right? So Tatum raises dogs. Okay. So now the neighbor apparently didn't like the dogs and was raising concerns. Tatum said, look, let's have a conversation. How can we fix this? How can we get along so I can still do my business, raising animals, raising dogs, and you can not be weirdo, not be crazy. Let's work this out. In fact, this was reported back in May of last year. He said, quote, "We're neighbors. If you have any problems, come talk to me. I'm right here. Whatever the situation, you can come talk to me." Now, this was, again, when they were having a conversation, and the guy just busts out. Gone. Bursts out of the room. Nope. Not having it. Then, afterwards, Tatum documented multiple incidents in the weeks and months that followed that first encounter. That's when the racism and the, just general harassment had begun. Miami police records showed multiple calls for service to Tatum's address. So he's like calling the cops on the neighbor, which again, the neighbor, Tatum is a black man. Okay. Generally not a good idea to call the police on black people because you know what happens. Now, that said, thankfully nothing did happen. No arrests were made. No citations were given because he wasn't doing anything wrong. In fact, Tatum said the police had stopped responding to his neighbor in the manner that he had wanted to. So he stopped calling the police and started resorting to more personal means. But actually, before doing the more personal stuff, he started calling animal control. Okay, if I'm going to, if calling the police is not going to help, then I'm going to call animal control. In fact, Tatum said, quote, "He and his wife are constantly driving by, taking videos of the dogs, and as soon as he sees that I'm going to the garbage can, he will wait for an opportunity to take the pictures and get me fined." Now, again, they have a fenced-in yard, but to go to the trash, well, you got to open the fence, right? You got to open the gate. You go out there, and he says, "Look, a couple of my dogs, they'll follow me out to the trash, and when I'm taking out the trash, and then they'll come back right back in." This guy apparently waits till that happens, takes pictures, sends them to animal control and says, "Look at these dogs. They're out of control. You got to go do something." And, well, apparently he has been subject to fines as a result of this. So this guy, again, does everything he could to try to make peace with his neighbor, saying, "Look, just, talk to me. We'll figure this out. Come on. Like, don't be an ass." Guy wasn't having it. And then it ended up escalating from there. In fact, Tatum has shown videos that have his neighbor, Herda, spraying substance onto his property. A chemical, an unidentified chemical that, and of course his dogs later on, ended up with burns on their coats. Oh, hell no. Hell no. No, you're going to hurt our animal? Over your disagreement with me? You're going to harm one of my pets? Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. So now look, when this abuse had started, he took every opportunity he could to film him. He put up surveillance cameras, and all these surveillance camera footage was turned into the court. And it took about 3 hours for a judge to go, oh, yeah, this is, oh, yep, yep. This guy is definitely a terrible neighbor. We're going to rule in your favor. And so what's the ruling? Well, there is now a 3-year restraining order against Hairdra, who will be prohibited from having any contact with Tatum and who will have to remain at least 500 feet away from his neighbor at all times, except when entering and leaving his home. He is also not allowed to post any complaints about his neighbor on the internet. Now, Tatum told Local 10 that he feels justice has been served, and now, finally, he can go on to actually enjoying spending time in his own neighborhood, which, again, this had started as soon as he moved in. He told Local 10, quote, peace of mind, mentally, nothing better than having some recourse to the situation. 100%. Look, let me tell you, there's nothing worse than bad neighbors. Sure, bad coworkers suck. Bosses suck. But at least in those situations, you get to go home. In this situation, with a bad neighbor, I mean, he's at your house. Always there. Right next to you. Look, your home is supposed to be your refuge. It's supposed to be your safe place where you can relax and unwind. But you got this going on? You got bad neighbors that are trying to make your life a living hell? No, it just makes it terrible. So I absolutely feel for the guy, and I'm glad that there is this judgment in his favor. Again, I also understand too that sometimes, yeah, if you have somebody who trains and breeds animals next door, yeah, of course that can get a little bit bothersome, could get noisy, barking in the middle of the night. That sucks. That sucks. And by the way, that's not to excuse any of the stuff that had happened here. Not at all. Not at all. I'm just saying that it could get bothersome, right? And you might be like, oh, God, I'm going to have a talk with the neighbor, right? And generally, if the neighbor's a cool guy, he'll find some way to try to, mitigate that or help that situation so that it's not as bothersome. But there's only so much you can do, and of course, animals are involved. That said, right? The guy was apparently taking good care of his animals, wasn't letting them run wild. They weren't, going around the neighborhood hurting anyone or getting into things, as far as I know. So there's just no reason for anyone to be a complete and utter a-hole. But now the other thing to mention here is the neighbor himself. Jesus Hairdra. Now he sounds Hispanic, probably is. Now there are some people out there that say, well, he's Hispanic. How can he be a racist? I got news for you. Anyone could be bigoted against other people. Now, I look at racism as in the context of having, power over members of a different race, whether it be legal power, economic power, etc. So I like to use the term bigotry in its place. In this case, I think bigotry works better as a descriptor because of the, I consider racism as more of a power imbalance along with, again, obviously race. That said, definitions aside, you could just say that he's racist because he is. And by the way, anyone could be racist against other people. It's not just white people that could be racist. Yes, it's true. And in all those situations, in every situation, it's wrong. It doesn't matter if it's a white guy, Hispanic guy. Calling someone the N-word, not okay. Doing any of the stuff that he has done, not okay. Not okay. Now, same thing. You shouldn't, use racial slurs against Hispanic people either. How about we, all try to do something a little bit crazy? I know I got an insane idea right now, okay? Not be assholes to each other.